But that would be my advice, is that if you are selling because you have a vision that you want to execute on, do not just take the word of the person who's involved in the transaction. Ask for an org chart. Who is the final decision maker? Who is really in charge? And go have a conversation with those people. I wish I'd known that.
She just sold her company. She sat in a room full of men negotiating the biggest deal of her lifetime. Wait, she sold for how much? I can't even believe she managed to get double her valuation. Let's keep this just between us.
You know, I heard that timing is everything. And for my next guest on the Exit Whisperer, this is no exception. You know, she talks actually a little bit about how she wishes she sold when her business was bigger because it's done so well under the acquirer. But if you ask me, she sold at exactly the right time. So Suzanne Shelton built the Shelton Group, which was one of the preeminent strategic comms firms for around sustainability. That's a vertical she discovered over decades of running this business. Like, she started in her 20s and she sold over decades later. She really had gotten herself in a space where she determined this expertise by figuring out which clients she served and then what ignited a passion within her. She finds this niche, she looks for an acquirer, and what she found and how she was able to build her next chapter, I don't know, it's really inspiring, you guys. So I can't wait for you to listen to it. I think she timed the market perfectly. I think she was bold and brave and gives some really, really practical insights for you guys around LOIs and what to look for and what the process is like. And, you know, for those of you who are running a 7-figure agency, this one, it's for you. Take a listen. Welcome, Suzanne, to the show.
I'm so glad to be here with you, Carrie.
I mean, we were in the agency trenches together. I met you in a fantastic group.
Yep.
That was like this professional collection of agency owners that just like waded in the shit together and like figured it all out together.
Yeah.
And yeah, and you and I were two of the ones that kind of ended up getting over to the other side and selling our businesses. And so I'm so happy to have you on today.
Ditto. And you know, not only were we two of the ones to get out to the other side, like there are consultants in the comms agency industry that will tell you flat out, you're never going to sell your business. You need to plan to take money out along the way. And so a lot of our conversations in that group were about that. Like, how do you maximize your profit so you can take it out along the way? Because you're never going to be able to sell it. And look, we both did.
That's right. That's exactly right. I actually want to talk a little bit more about that later because that's a good point. But why don't we clue our listeners in on to how the start of Shelton Group came to be and where your passions were as you were building this?
Okay. So I started Shelton Group when I was 23 years old. And so started Shelton Group makes it sound like there was a plan, there was intention. I mean, there was none of that. You know, I'm a comms girl. I wrote my first ad in 3rd grade, performed it for the school. I went to college to learn how to make ads. You know, I thought I would wind up as a creative director in New York or Chicago making Super Bowl ads. Like, that was sort of the dream. And then again, more story than we have time to get into today, but wound up starting this by accident as a freelance writer, and then was good enough at that got more work. You know, it's the classic story, got more work than I could handle, had to hire people, then started hiring designers. And before you knew it, 5-6 years in, I had a little creative boutique here in Knoxville, Tennessee, working with clients in Knoxville, Tennessee. And I hired a lot of really fun people, and we had a great time, and we played together, we worked together. It was great. And the money was always hard. I mean, I would hire people and go, God, I hope I can make your payroll, you know, and it was just stressful. So by the early 2000s, thanks to some of the consultants I just mentioned, I finally gotten it drilled into my head. We're going to have to focus in on a thing. Like, we're going to have to be the best in the world at something if we're going to continue to grow our business and make the money not be so hard anymore. So we had a lot of experience in the electric utility industry of all things. And you know, in the early 2000s, what we're experiencing today was not 100% clear, but it is a little bit clear. Like, you know, 60% of our electricity came from burning coal, which is horrifically bad for the environment, not to mention, you know, allergies and asthma. So we saw that that couldn't continue. We saw that there was going to be increasing demand for electricity. We couldn't continue to make it in a way that was destroying the planet. So we looked at that and went, there's going to be a lot of innovation. There's going to be a need for a lot of communications. There are no other firms that are specialized in this. So why don't we go there? So we planted our flag in 2005 as the country's leading marketing communications agency focused in energy and the environment is what we called it then. And to bolster that brand position, we have an in-house market insights team. So we started doing our own proprietary studies to understand what do people think, believe, and expect on a range of sort of energy and environmental topics. That got me out on a lot of conference stages speaking about what do people expect, which then allowed us to position ourselves as the expert and drive leads and drive revenue. In 2008, GE launched a little campaign called Eco-Imagination. It's about a $40 million campaign. It was their entire brand spend. And basically, it was a whole series of commercials that said, here are the cool things we're doing for the environment. Now, don't you like us better and want to buy from us and work for us? And the rest of corporate America went, oh, well, we should do that too. And then, let the greenwashing begin. Lots of people just started putting, messages out there that weren't necessarily true, but everybody was on the green bandwagon all of a sudden. And we were really well positioned because we'd already been doing these studies. I'd already been out there on stages, et cetera. So we had some nice growth up until about the teens when things kind of flattened out and companies decided, well, we're not going to really spend that much money on communicating this story. And then, so I'm getting to how did I decide to sell? Everything changed in 2019. EVPs of corporate communications who wouldn't give us the time of day before suddenly started blowing up our phone unsolicited, saying some version of, hey, my CEO is getting asked all these uncomfortable questions about ESG on investor calls.
Right.
And can you fix that? And so what happened, there are two things that sort of happened in parallel that led me to decide to sell. One thing is with some of those companies, we would look under the hood and go, okay, you don't have a communications problem. You actually have an action problem, like yes, doing the right things. Right. We were bringing in all these other consultants to fix that problem so that we could then do a storytelling exercise. So that's sort of thing one. We realized, we really got to have the doing and saying of sustainability together. Like that ought to be a thing. And then secondly, by the time we got to late 2021, early 2022, we were having Fortune 100 companies call us and ask us for exactly what we do. And I was having to say, we can totally help you. I love you. I want to work with you. And I cannot get to you for like 4 or 5 months. Can you wait? And the answer was always no. And our competitive set has always been big global PR firms like Edelman, Goldman, those folks. And they do a great job. And we don't often, at that point, didn't often win against them. But when we did, we won based on expertise. Like we could show a whole lot of case studies that looked a lot like the prospective client to say, look at all this work we've done. And a savvy client who's been around the block a time or two on sustainability would go, yes, I know we already have contracts with these big global agencies, but we need a specialist. We need the Navy SEALs to come in and fix this thing for us. And when I was having to say no to all this business, I thought, they're all going to go hire Edelman and that I'm not going to be able to compete against them anymore because they're going to have the same portfolio as us. So both of those things were happening in parallel, and I'm not getting any younger. Clearly I have a lot of energy. I'm not ready to stop doing what I'm doing yet. But there was also this kind of nagging thing in the back of my brain, like, well, what am I going to do one day? Just like turn off the lights and everybody loses their job. Like, I need a plan. So those things,
the end? Yeah.
Those things were all happening. Our numbers looked good. We'd had several years of success.
Yep.
And we thought, go out on top. Like now's the time to get the most money. In hindsight, if I could have waited another year, I probably would have gotten more money because we've continued to do incredibly well. Like in the time since we were told.
Yeah. I'm going to talk to you about that in a minute. And I'll tell you actually my own experience about thinking about that. But okay, I have so many questions on the build side. And then I want to get to the decision to sell because I think it was great how you sort of summarized it there. When we're looking at the build side, one of the things that you did, you mentioned that, the optimizing like for profit and the money part is always hard. And yet you were very bold and brave in terms of investing time, money, and resources into research and into creating your own proprietary reports and into your time going and speaking and getting out there. Right. Talk to me about how you managed like the stomach for that. It's like this bet on, okay, if I invest all of this time and money into non-billable shit, right? Like stuff that like I'm just doing for the good of the world and hopefully good of driving business, the money will come. How did you manage that and that threshold with profitability?
I'll tell you two quick stories. In the early days of Shelton, man, we were probably, I don't know, 7 years in. So I
Yeah.
probably was barely 30, maybe
Yeah.
29.
Yeah.
And we agreed to do all the free promotion for our local addies, which means
Mhm.
all this work and not making.
Mhm.
We took on our first website development project and a CD-ROM project
Yep.
that we'd never done before, and so we dramatically underpriced it, and we're doing a whole bunch of work for free. And then our largest client was making my people cry, so I fired them. And
Mm.
all three of these things happened at the same time.
Mhm.
My accounting people performed an intervention with me and said, "You're going to have to let people go." And maybe we had like 8 people at the time. They're like, "You're going to have to let people go because you're not bringing enough money in the door to cover payroll." To which I said, "Okay, but then if I go get the business, who's going to do the work? So I can't fire these people. They're awesome. They were hard to find. Like I can't just
Yeah.
replace them." So what I did that I do not recommend to anyone, but I was like 29, 30 years old. I went out and got a hold of every credit card I could get and got cash advances on them to make payroll.
I
And it
know.
took me years to pay it off. And I went for a few months without a salary. Took me years to pay off. But in the end, like doing that allowed me to keep those people and build the business. So I think that was really formative for me. And how do you stick to your guns, stick to a strategy, make the big financial bet? And so by the time we decided to focus on sustainability, the other story is I felt like that was a consensus built decision. We held a meeting once a month. We
Yep.
looked at all different things. Like I thought I had consensus, but in the end, over the next 2 years, once we made that decision, 80% of my staff turned over not by my choice. Like people
Mm.
one by one. And it was always slightly different. Like some people said, I think we're going to work on crappy electric utility ads. And that's not really what I'm here to do. It's not really what I'm excited about. Or people would say, wow, okay, like you really want to grow and be national. And that sounds like a lot of work. And I'm like, not really into that. This was just sort of a fun thing to do. Or, you know what, I'm burned out on the industry and you clearly need strong leaders beside you. And I ain't it. But that that was the awake at 2 o'clock in the morning a lot with me going, am I doing the right thing? Like people I love and respect that I've known for a long time, they've worked for me for a long time, they're all one by one saying, I don't believe in this. And what I would tell myself at 2 o'clock in the morning is, A, you've been here before, you know how to place a big bet and support it. But B, I'm out of ideas. Like I've tried so many things. We've lost so many, like we've chased after opportunities that I thought we were a great fit for. We've not won. We keep getting feedback. You're too small. You don't have brains like us in your portfolio. You're not specialized. Like, I don't know what else to do except this. And it took 2 years, by the way. It took 2 years of investing and sticking with it. But within 2 years of saying, we are the guys focused in sustainability, we competed and landed two very large clients that allowed us to the growth was like, boop, immediately. And those people leaving allowed us to bring in folks who were bought into the vision, as much as it was painful. So, I mean, that's kind of how it's like I'd been tested before. I'd tried all a bunch of things that hadn't worked. I didn't have anything else left to try.
I love that. And so do you recommend if you're talking with a young agency owner, I speak to agency owners all the time, and they do have trouble having the discipline to specialize. Are you still a huge fan of specialization?
Yes,
Me too.
absolutely.
Me too.
Absolutely. Because y'all, I mean, I don't know what the number is now, but once upon a time, there were like 70,000 comms agencies.
Oh, more now. Yeah.
We're a dime a dozen. And with AI breathing down our necks to do media buying and writing and all the things, like you've got to be able to bring that intellectual capital, that expertise, that experience, or else why else would a client hire you?
I'm very excited to ask you this question because I don't know that, you're really never supposed to ask a question you don't know the answer to. But I know you, when I met you, you were already, you were into the space. You had already niched. And to me, I looked at you and I was like, this is the most passionate thought leader about this industry that I've ever seen. And I remember watching you speak and thinking like, oh my God, she's the bee's knees on this. Okay. Yep. Was the specialty, did it come from a passion point from you, or did it just come from the realization and utilization? Like, do you think you would have naturally ended up here?
Oh man. It's a little bit of both, right? Like I said, we went through this year-long process to decide if we're going to focus, what will we focus on?
Yeah.
And so nobody looked at forgive me to anybody who works
Yeah.
for utility.
Yeah.
Nobody looked at utilities and went, yeah, that is so sexy.
Yeah.
It's not like tennis shoes or soda pop or whatever.
Yeah.
So nobody, so there was a way in which it was strategic. Like that's an industry that's going to grow. Nobody else is focused in it, regardless of how we feel about it.
Yep.
One, but thing two, ever since I had learned that we were generating electricity by burning coal, which just sounds so freaking medieval. Like, why would we do that?
Yes.
I hadn't been able to shake it. Like it had bothered me. I'd had conversations with enough environmentalists to talk through like, what does that particulate matter do to the lungs of babies and old people? And so I hadn't been able to shake. And I'm an outdoorsy girl. I mean, my best memories growing up were as a camp counselor, and it was all about being outdoors. And so there was a personal connection to it in addition to it being a business strategy. And then the more I saw the trajectory, I mean, just Google what happens to the planet with a 3-degree increase in global temperatures. I mean, it's appalling. And once you become a parent, you can't. I mean, for me, I can't live with that and just go about my day like there's nothing wrong when I know that we are a train wreck about to happen, and I don't want to leave that to my daughter.
Yeah, yeah. And so now that makes sense to me. So you had the electric and the utility vertical, then the discovery of the passion, what happens and how your electricity is generated. Then it lights a fire within you. And then here you are. Okay. So now let's get back to when you decide to sell. So you decide to sell because of a few reasons, right? There's the typical age and stage. Now you're no longer like in your 20s or 30s when you start this business. You're a seasoned executive. You've grown it. There's also the inability to service because of fast growth, and that this became the real like focus of these Fortune 500s. Like everybody had to
hot.
Okay.
Yeah.
So you sell, and you also sold, what year did you sell? 21 or
22?
22.
Yep.
Okay. So you're still like pretty much at the height of the valuation market. Like when you're coming in and getting sold, like 21 was like golden year, 22 is still pretty good. When you're looking at that year to sell, you put yourself out there, and who are you looking for? Are you looking for highest bidder, impact? Like what's important to Suzanne in this sales process?
It's interesting. There were two things that were important. Like I had decided on a number that I felt like was fair based on like what our performance had been, where I thought our performance could be, the amount of sweat equity I had in it. So I come up with a number.
Yep.
And so and in hindsight, I mean, I guess maybe it would have been beneficial to do it another way. Like, but that was the number we put out there. Like, here's this great agency. Here's what they do. This is how much money they want. Like if you were listing a house, I guess I thought about it like that. Like, here's the house and here's the price tag.
Yep.
And so I wasn't really trying to negotiate with anybody for a higher number. It was like, this is the number. If you want.
So you set a number and did like an auction process with an advisor. Basically, they put it out there. This is the sale price.
Kind of. I didn't think of it as an auction, but yes, it's like this is the list price. Okay, so that mattered, but then sustainability needed to matter to whoever I sold it to, because I knew this is super hot right now. It wasn't super hot 5 years ago. It might not be super hot in 5 years, and I don't want to be relegated to like a lesser than position. So I want to be joined hip with people for whom this matters. So actually, when I hired my broker, I gave 2 lists to her. One was a list of sustainability consultancies, and the rationale was, okay, they don't really do comms, but they do the doing of sustainability, so we can bring the saying of sustainability. Let's go explore some of those. But then I also gave her a list of independent comms agencies, and I thought that's where I would go, Carrie, because as we established, I'm a comms girl. I wrote my first ad in 3rd grade.
Right,
like
comms first. Right.
Yeah, so I thought I would go that direction. And again, I don't know. I've thought about this a lot. Like, I don't know if it was a function of the agencies that were brought to me, and there was a bigger pool out there that I could have talked to. But the agency owners I talked to, when I asked them, why would you want to buy an ESG focused comms firm? They all said some bullshit version of, well, we're in the reputation management business, so we need to be in the ESG business. And so I like, you don't care. This is just the hot thing right now. And when it's not hot, we're going to be stuck in a corner somewhere and it's not going to be fun. So it mattered having that cultural or that values alignment, I guess is the better word. Values alignment really mattered. I needed to be able to see how we're going to articulate a value proposition that allows me to compete against the elements of the world. And I did want to be able to grow globally. That had also been like an Achilles heel for us, that we were US focused and most of our clients are global and sustainability is a global thing. And we knew that we lost work sometimes because we couldn't really reasonably say, yes, we have a team of people that can get on all this work in EMEA right now. Like we had to make up some stuff about partnerships.
So you end up going with how would you describe ERM as a consultancy, right? It's more on the consultancy side. How is at the time when they come in?
My elevator pitch for them, which is not what they actually say, my elevator pitch is they are the world's leading management consultancy entirely focused on sustainability.
Perfect. Okay.
Yeah. But they are a management consultancy today. They were born at the dawn of the environmental movement in the early 70s. So, I mean, think when rivers were on fire, these were the guys getting out there and doing remediation of that and like changing the game. So what's actually pretty cool about them versus say a McKinsey or a Deloitte is that they have a whole bunch of guys and girls with dirt under their fingernails who can go out and do soil quality testing and air quality testing and, can get into wetlands and figure out how are we going to protect them. So they have those like, scientists in the field. And then they have, the blue chip management consultants that are in the boardroom. So they can actually execute on what they propose, which is a little bit different from how some of the big four operates. So that's pretty cool. But they are a technical organization.
I mean, this is very different than selling to your typical agency holdco, right? Yes. It's like, I would admit, were you their first agency acquisition?
Yes.
Yes. Okay. You get this offer and you're looking at other agency offers and you get this offer where you would be sort of the only in the category that you serve, but within an organization that is so deeply mission aligned. Did that appeal to you, scare you, both?
I'll tell you 3 reasons why I picked ERM, and then I'll tell you what I was worried would be hard and has been hard. So mission aligned, purpose aligned, values aligned. So that mattered a lot. A. B, theirs was by far, I'm going to call it the most respectful offer. I had 4 offers, like one of which did not make its paper. It was sort of verbal. So maybe you would say 3. Yeah. But the other offers, and you see this a lot, I'm sure, Carrie, the other offers were all like, we'll give you 50% of your money. And if you hit these insane goals, then we'll give you the rest of your money. Mm-hmm. To which for a sole owner is like, well, if I'm going to hit those goals, I'm not going to
hit them myself.
I'm just going to do it myself and take the money. Like, so ERM's was respectful. I now know that they do a lot of acquisitions. I don't know, 10, 12 a year. And they want to incorporate acquired companies as quickly as possible. They want to integrate them in as quickly as possible because theirs is very much, it is a partnership model and it's a team model. We have to go together to clients to try to solve a wide variety of problems for the client. So it does not serve them to leave a company set up for a couple of years on their own P&L, which is what you have to do when you're doing an earnout. So they want to integrate you quickly. So their offer, essentially I got 85% of my money at the closing table. Yep. We did escrow some amount, but that escrow wasn't dependent on performance. It was more.
It's escrow. Yes, it's help.
Like if the IRS comes back and says, there's money set aside.
Of course.
But basically I got all my money at the table and their offer was written out in long form. It was very thoughtful. And it was respectful. And so that compared to the other offers that felt like they were sort of thrown together and didn't respect what I had built, it meant a lot to me. Mm-hmm. So for anyone buying a company, that's a thing to consider.
It's a great tip. And it is about money, but it's also about more than money. You know what I mean? Like there's just so many things about the way that they think about your organization. Okay. So I hear this offer. To me, I'm like, so thrilled for you. I remember when this happened. So thrilled. The amount of cash up front, the right type of buyer. I see you as an opportunity to like build something bigger for them. You're this belle of the ball there. They don't have an agency. Like, wow, isn't that awesome?
Yep.
You close and now you go from being Suzanne Shelton, lone wolf, building her thing entirely on her own, a hyper independent, brilliant leader, to being a part of a larger organization for the first time in decades. How does it go? And what advice do you have for my other hyper independent, strong ass women who sell their businesses and then are no longer in control.
I mean, you're setting up how it went. All right. So, okay. So remember, I started Shelton Group when I was 23 years old. I mean, so I sort of knew I'm generally unemployable because I get to make all my own decisions, but I didn't quite know. I'm going to tell you what I have struggled the most with is not managing a P&L. And when I talk to ERM's leaders about that, like I want to have control over expenses and revenue. I want to, like they sort of look at me like I have two heads, like, but you sold your company, you're liberated. You don't have to worry about a P&L anymore. Yeah. And I just have a real hyper responsibility bone or DNA. And
I get that.
Manage it. And so now I do have revenue targets.
Okay.
We are, and we are growing. We've grown phenomenally in the 2.5 years that we've been at ERM. We've doubled in revenue and size. I mean, so that's great. And I've got the revenue, but I don't have the expenses and I don't have the decision-making power. So I have to get someone else to approve if we're going to hire someone. If I want to bring the whole team into Knoxville, I've got to get someone else to approve that. So I really, really, really don't like that. And I've told the ERM team, I think there's a way in which ERM does itself a disservice because it brings in these leaders that have been through the fire, that know how to make these really painful, hard decisions. And then they take away the decision-making power. Yeah. And I think that ERM can benefit from keeping some of that intact, but I don't think it's just ERM. I think it's any big company who buys a little company, they probably do a lot of they probably take the same approach. So that has been really hard. And I didn't recognize how hard it would be. The other thing I would say is really hard is that I was very clear. So let's talk also about timing, because I think that would be helpful for folks. Yeah. So I hired the broker in January of 2022. We immediately started having conversations. Like my first conversation with ERM was in February of 2022. I didn't have the LOI until end of May. So it took 3 months of conversations, and they were the last one to come through, even though I had all these other LOIs from other
you didn't firms. Like the disrespectful LOIs.
Yeah. But I kept having to sort of put them off because I didn't want to I didn't want to reject them out of hand. Right. So it was really stressful. So we signed the LOI at the end of May, and then we don't close with ERM until the end of September. Yep. Tiny little thing I learned along the way that my broker didn't tell me is, you always do closings at the end of the month. Yeah. And so I kept thinking, well, we'll close in like early September because we've got all the things done. And then there was another month, and that mattered because I had to time out. When am I going to tell people? And, so just know it takes a lot longer than you think it will. And end of the month is when closings happen. So during that time period, between the LOI and actual closing, I mean, I had many, many, many conversations with the guy who was leading this, who was going to ultimately be my boss, that the whole reason I'm coming is that I want to build the highest impact sustainability comms firm in the world. Like, so I want to do that. Can I do that here? Yes, 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 yes. And what I didn't understand, that if I could go back and do it over again, I really should have asked, let me talk to your executive team. Let me have this conversation with them. Let me see if they're bought in. I come from a family of lawyers. So the title business unit managing partner sounds like it is the decision maker, very important.
Yes, it does.
And it turns out not so much. A business unit managing partner is literally just managing a business unit, not working at the highest levels. Now, the executive team might not have wanted to talk to me, which would have told me something. But 4 or 5 months in, I realized nobody is bought into my vision. I'm either going to have to leave, or I'm going to have to develop a plan. I'm going to have to shop it around. I'm going to have to sell this through. And that's ultimately what I decided to do. And once I did that, built my plan, shopped it around to the executive team. I mean, they said yes to it, and they've been incredibly supportive. But that would be my advice, is that if you are selling because you have a vision that you want to execute on, do not just take the word of the person who's involved in the transaction. Ask to speak. Ask for an org chart. Who is the final decision maker? Who is really in charge? And go have a conversation with those people. So I wish I'd known that.
So when you do finally get the LOI from ERM, which I know took longer than you wanted, and you're like holding these other guys and we're like trying to figure it out, what's something that you really realized as you were going through the process with that LOI?
Well, okay, something that frankly I wish my broker had told me. Mm-hmm. So everybody needs to know this. When I said yes to ERM's LOI, which I thought was pretty good, I didn't realize I was saying yes to the final deal. Yeah. Like I thought, I'm saying yes to like a framework. And then over the next several months, as they do due diligence, we're going to hammer out aspects. And so over the next few months, as I tried to change things, like the M&A guy from ERM was pretty firm. Like, no, we have the terms of the deal. It was in the LOI. And I'm like, but I thought that was just a framework. So you need to know the LOI is the deal. So you negotiate at the LOI stage, not in the final contract.
That is where you negotiate. And that's the thing. The offer after the LOI, the offer never goes up. It can only go down in due diligence. Like nobody's ever going to be like, oh, we discovered you had this extra working capital, so we're going to leave it in there for you. It's always, no, this contract we thought was going this long and you don't actually have it. And so here's what we're going to reduce by. It never, ever goes up. So the LOI, you have to be as specific as possible in what you want. I totally agree. And you feel under so much pressure just because you want to sell. You're under so much pressure to sign it. Let's get it done. And then we'll figure it all out later. But you have to figure it out before all your leverage pre-LOI.
That's right. And this is why you're a great advisor to women looking to go through this process, because you know that and you can tell people that.
I know you mentioned that age and stage played a factor in the sale. And now here you are and you're working and growing. Do you see this as you're going to do this, until you don't want to work anymore? Is it what's next for you in your world?
So there's a couple of things. I mean, part of being here and having the stress of my own personal finances, like now I'm in a position to work because I want to, not because I have to.
Right.
Which, by the way, doesn't go over well with people when you tell them that. It's like,
I know. I get it.
Look at how awesome this is. And then
Yeah.
I'm like pissed off at you because of it. I don't know. So
Right.
don't tell people that. I learned that the hard way. But so now that that's off of me, my focus is really on how do I build my leadership team and the people that are right under them so that everybody has a pathway for growth and everybody can create wealth and everybody can make money. ERM is a partnership. It's private equity backed. So there are opportunities to have shares and to build wealth and being a part of this. And so right now my focus is on make sure everybody has a path. I still love doing a lot of what I do. So every week when I make goals for the week, it's about, okay, how do I spend the most time doing the stuff I love doing and the least amount of time on the stuff I don't love doing? And how do I delegate that to other people who might love doing those things that I don't love doing? So that's sort of where I am right now. Given I can't get into too much detail about the private equity cycles, but there's, there are opportunities coming down the pike and we'll see, as long as I feel like I'm making an impact, I feel like I'm able to create a pathway for my people and I'm generally having a good time. I'll keep doing what I'm doing.
It's awesome. Yeah. Suzanne, thank you so much for coming on the show today. You were an awesome guest and I love how openly you share and how relatable the story is. The tips that you gave around really like niching down and then the things to learn during the acquisition, they're just invaluable. So thank you for sharing them with our
Oh gosh, you're so welcome. You're so welcome. Thank you so much for having me. It's so great
to. Of course.